Okay, so hot shot here. What is the first rule of Google Ads management?
Okay. The first thing you should always focus on when it comes to prioritization number one in Google Ads are bids and budget. So, rule number one, bids and budget. I'm not going to say bids are first or budget is second. They're together, they're of equal weight, bids and budget. And
Bids and
I
budget.
want to. I want to hit a little deeper on each one of these points. So I have some sub rules to these. It gets pretty complex, Jason. You might want to take notes. First thing is bid and budget. So here's one sub rule: have a budget, set that budget, and leave it. Okay. So we're talking about distractions. You get distracted. You get distracted by, oh, I didn't spend as much yesterday. I didn't, or I'm trending a little high now. I'm trending a little low, back and forth things. I'm
Oh
talking
man,
about
yesterday was a good day in Google Ads. I'm going to double our budget today.
right,
Oh,
right.
yesterday we didn't get any
No,
leads. I'm going to shrink our budget by 90%.
right, exactly.
Ooh, I've seen some
Distracted,
bad behavior out there, Chris.
distracted. So rule number one: don't play around with the budget too much. Set your budget and leave it.
Okay.
And that's, as far as the budget goes, that's really where you should be. You should be steady and moving forward. Pick a number and stick with it. And when you do have to change it, there should be some solid basis for that, some kind of reasoning. But
Set it
overall,
on let me give a sub rule to a sub rule, Chris.
okay,
Set it at a monthly basis, on a monthly basis.
I like that.
I
I
love
like
that.
that.
I love
Yeah.
that. It gives you the discipline. You have to have the discipline to stick to a full month, but you have the flexibility to see what happened during that month and look at the data, impression share, and all that, and see what you want to do for the next month. So set it for at least a month.
Okay. So there we go. So far, no pushback. You like it? This is a big.
Of course,
a big
I like
thing
it.
here.
It's a good idea.
The very first thing I said was set a budget and leave it.
I
So
see
you
a
feel
lot of
like,
people make bad decisions with Google Ads with their budgets. Absolutely horrible decisions. And I'm going to add on to that, pausing and unpausing your account. Chris, I've
yeah.
been seeing people pause their account because they had a bad day, then turn it back on because their last Monday was a good lead day. This is the very wrong thing to do, Chris.
Or the worst thing of all, we had such a good month, we can't take any more leads. We're going to pause the campaign.
Yeah.
It's like we're going to take all the work that's happening right now and put it
The
in
whole reason we
absolute
got
jeopardy.
leads.
Right. We're going to put it in jeopardy by pausing it until our salesman can address those leads. And maybe those leads aren't as good as I thought. And now we've screwed up and the pipeline is empty when we're ready for more. Such a bad idea. So rule number one, prioritizing,
Discipline.
set your budget. Don't get distracted. Stay on course. We get priority number 2B or priority number 1B. I don't know. Anyway, you don't want to bid too high and lose potential clicks. And then the inverse is true. Don't bid too low and not be competitive. And I'm going to give some specific numbers here,
And I'm going to encourage everyone to ignore them.
because what I want to say is, you say, well, Chris, how do you know something is bidding too high? Well, that's very hard to do without one specific metric: the search impression share loss due to rank. Okay, I'm going to say for most of the time, most accounts are not just printing money and making money all the time. There's a lot of up and down. Most of the time, accounts do
Not
not
my
need to
accounts.
be at a 10% search impression share loss due to rank. Right? That's probably a little too heavy. You're pushing the engine a little too hard.
You're hardly missing anything because of your bids.
Yeah. So that feels like if you cannot be at a 10% and be a little lower, hopefully, maybe 30s, 40s, 20s at least, leave a little room. That feels like a safer spot to be. And then on the opposite side, so this is rule number 1C, don't bid too low and not be competitive. So if your search impression share is 90% lost due to rank, and you are getting less than 50% impression top percentage, this feels like you're wasting time here. I mean, you're just putting along, not really being aggressive enough. You're not being competitive. You're not really getting out there and being visible. What are you doing? This feels like you've let off on the gas too much. So would you agree? Set budget, set bids, and keep the bids somewhere between 10 and 90. You need a mid-level kind of thing.
Would
Am
I
I
agree with
wrong?
that? Would I agree
Yeah.
with that? I'm not going to say you're wrong, but I'm not
Okay.
going to agree with that for my
Okay.
rules. I'm not going to
Okay.
follow your rules when I'm managing my accounts. Are you crazy?
Okay. Well,
Um, no, I don't. That's not something I would look at, Chris. The impression share numbers to me are different than the position percentage numbers. So I would go about doing this the same. I would go about the same kind of goal, like being not too aggressive with your bids, not too wimpy with your bids, but I focus on the absolute top percentage column.
even over, you prioritize that metric over the search impression share loss due
It's
to
a good
rank?
time we had this conversation and could speak openly to each other.
Let's do it.
5.5 years in and 300 something episodes in, we can finally have this
Okay.
conversation man to man and be mature enough to look each other in the eyes. Um, and tell each other how we really feel. But no, I don't focus on the search impression share columns other than budget. Budget one guides how much we could spend, and rank, it is what it is. I do everything I can by default to get good quality scores, and my bids are determined by the position and the conversion data, not the search impression share loss due to rank data. 90% of the time, every now and then we bump things up because we want to see less loss due to rank, and it guides us, but more what guides us day to day is the position data and the conversion data. Chris, don't get red, don't get angry just because someone disagreed with you. It's a free
It's
country. You have the freedom of
okay.
speech and all that kind of stuff, and I can say what I want here, Chris. And there's nothing, absolutely nothing that you can do about it, and you just have to accept that. And once you accept that, you'll be able to live your life in a freer, more open, less burdensome way, and maybe you'll feel a weight come off your shoulders. You
Well,
know,
I'll tell you.
is it okay that I did? I mean, that's just the way I do things,
Well,
Chris. I'm not a big impression share column guy. What do you
well,
want to do about it?
I feel like positions are such a limiting amount of information about where you are competitively, because is it not true that you could have a 60% impression top percentage and have a 80% impression share loss due to rank? So effectively, even though you're 60% above
No. I've
organic.
crunched the numbers. That's not possible. Those specific numbers are not possible. No, I'm just kidding. My point is, Chris, I think whether you look at it from and by the way, I don't look at top percentage. You have to listen to what your podcast partner says. I said
Okay.
absolute top
Absolute top.
percentage. That's the column I like looking at for positions.
Okay.
How often are we showing absolutely number one? And I can dial that up and down like a gauge. And I think, Chris, if you're showing up number one 80% of the time, I don't think you're going to be missing out on impression share due to rank 60% of the time. I think I think they correlate with each other, Chris. I think the more aggressive you bid, the more often you're going to show up number one, and the less often you're going to miss impressions due to ad rank. I think they just correlate with each other. And so I think
Okay.
we have the same goals in mind. And I think if we were managing the same account, we would have close to the same bids if we had the same goal. It's just you're looking at impression share loss due to rank. And you basically, how often did you not show up number one, if you will? That's a little bit of a spin on it, but if you will. And I'm looking at how often we showed up number one. It's kind of, to me, it's kind of like they go along the same course.
Let's say you have a highly competitive campaign that you're running, car insurance in the US. And you almost never get first position, which is very likely, for all the competitors that you get. Let's say you're targeting nationally for used car insurance.
Which I do all the time.
Okay. So
when's the last time you ran a car insurance campaign, Chris?
yeah, I know. Never. I know. But I'm just imagining the reason I'm not is because they're probably absolutely terrifying.
Right, let's say you run a moving company, Chris, and you want to.
No, don't hijack my no.
It's okay. You have car insurance for total loss, and if they steal
Okay.
your car, you can cash it in and get
So
paid back.
if I have, let's say 5% absolute top, I mean that gives you
5%
very
what? 5%. Oh,
percent absolute top.
You're only showing up number one 5% of the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is very possible for something that's so competitive. There's going to be some big players in that game. You would really need to look at search impression share loss due to rank, wouldn't you, to kind of understand how much market you're missing, and you
I
would
don't think
base
so.
that. No,
I'd still probably at that point I'd look at top percentage instead of absolute top percentage. And maybe try to be there 20-30% of the time if it's a car insurance thing. But the thing is, Chris, I don't run car insurance ads. I run ads for service companies looking to get leads. And even though a car insurance company is that, it's a different field. There's like a few big players and they advertise a ton. And anytime I try to work with a small advertiser in that field, it doesn't work out. So I can't remember a time where I can, but it's been years, where we don't show up number one at least like 30, 40, 50% of the time. This 5% number one thing, we're not dealing with that.
Okay.
So it's just a matter of the kind of accounts you're managing, the kind of situations you find yourself in. I'm not saying your focus on impression share loss due to rank is invalid. I'm just saying I find absolute top percentage to be more helpful for the kind of accounts I run, where we get some meaningful data there. And I do the same thing you do. I dial up and down and try to find a reasonable level when we start in the first few months, but I just do it with that column. The one thing I will say about either column, but I think more so loss due to rank, impression share loss due to rank, is that I could see that being a tough column to gauge things with, depending on what's inside of your one campaign, because there could be different levels of competitiveness with your keywords. You could have a brand ad group, a competitor ad group, high funnel ad group, super deep funnel ad groups, and it may be hard to judge that number at the campaign level, but it's not to say you can't judge it at the ad group level.
Okay. Stepping back, do you agree? You see in the notes the other two things that I'm going to talk about. Do you agree that I have the priority correct on the first things first of what you focus on to get it set right, and then you move on to priority 2? Do you think bids and budget?
It's tough. It's tough because I like what you're saying with budget, and I like what you're saying with stick to a budget for at least a month and run consistently for a month and stick to a schedule and a budget you like running for that month. I have a little bit of a problem with prioritizing bidding over search term quality. I think you are so good at what you do. You're so dialed in on search terms all the time that I think you're underestimating how much of a problem that is for people out there in the wild, all these savages trying to do their
broad
Google
keywords.
Ads accounts. Yeah. Just crazy search terms. Now, but the thing is, you got to prioritize something, and bidding is super important. And it's kind of a cow and a steak thing. It's like, did the cow come first or did the steak come first? It's like, do you focus on bids first and then you focus on search term quality? But search term quality is super important. So then do you focus on that first? But then bids are also super important. So I think you have to choose one, whether it's the steak or the egg or the cow or the lion, whatever it ends up being, or the elephant or the peanuts.
Would you
or the ostrich or the egg, which came first?
So
or the peanut butter or the jelly.
Okay. I think the original
or the podcast or the ego.
I think the chicken and egg analogy is probably the one that you should keep. The other ones kind of fall through.
Well, which
especially
one
the
came
steak
first?
and the cow.
That's the problem with chicken or egg. People don't listen to what you're saying. They just start thinking, "Oh, what did come first, the chicken or the egg?" That's what you're thinking about right now. And which did come first? We don't know.
No. Now I'm thinking like the steak and the cow thing just completely. Now I was thinking about how bad that was, instead of where I should be thinking. Like, of course the cow came first.
Of course it did.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Would you agree that prioritizing bids and budget would be most important because you can equalize and much more quickly stabilize?
I'll say this. I'll say it.
You can stabilize. No.
I'll say.
Hang on. No. you can stabilize bids and budget faster than you can stabilize quality of traffic. Therefore, I put it as priority number one because it's easier to get first.
I'm gonna agree with you and say it should be priority number one in terms of your thinking, because search terms should always be right. That should just be like by default. And by the way, you'll always get there. You know, you're always going to get there and see what you're showing
You'll
up
get
on.
there.
It makes it.
It's a continual process. Yeah.
The other reason I'm happy to say bids and budget are first is because with search terms, you can have 70% horrible search terms and 30% good search terms, which a lot of advertisers do when they don't know what they're doing, and still knock the pants off of TV advertising or radio or print. You can still do a lot better than those old channels on search and billboards and whatever, even if your search term ratio is horrible.
Yeah.
But if you mess up your budget and pausing all the time and running with too small of a budget or too big and then trying to fill it in, or changing your bids all the time, or you just have the wrong bids and you have not over 90% loss due to ad rank, or you have showing up number one less than 10% of the time and you're not getting the traffic, that's worse than getting some good traffic and some bad traffic. So I'm happy to say bids and budget should be the first priority, because you can't get good results if you don't have those things correct, but you can get good results even if your search terms aren't that great.
Okay.
Because some of them will be great. Yeah.